I thought today I would talk about listening. In light of the past couple of weeks, I think it's really super important that I think more about it, and maybe you feel that way too. I used to teach listening. It was a big part of my communications training toolkit. And in fact, in my first book, I wrote an entire chapter at it. I thought then, as I think now, it is the most important yet the most neglected communication skill, which is why most of us are pretty bad at it. So I thought I would take a few minutes today and go through some of the things that are very familiar. I hope that they will be familiar and maybe helpful to, again, not only myself, but to you as we move forward in our current situation. All right, so does this sound familiar? You are listening to someone, but you're planning what you're going to say next. Okay, number two, someone is listening to you, you are talking, they're doing the listening, and they're also checking their phone, they're checking their texts, maybe they're returning some texts. They might even say, if the phone rings, I have to take this. And then they come back to you and they say, okay, where were we? Right? Okay. And number three, I'm going to check my notes for this because I can't remember. Right, someone introduces, this is super familiar. Someone introduces themselves to you and you immediately forget their name, right? This happens to me all the time. I'm notorious for this. And people are often asking me, how do I fix that, Ruth? How do I remember people's names? And it's like, just listen, just focus in and listen. I know when I do, it actually works. All right, so I want you to think for a minute how it feels when somebody really listens to you, okay? Does it feel like you're being taken seriously? Does it feel like your self-esteem is going up? Does it feel like what you're saying is viewed as important? For example, think about when you go see a doctor. Doesn't it feel much better when that doctor is focused in on listening to you and responding because they've listened to you rather than it looks like the doctor is scribbling down notes or on their computer trying to transcribe what you're saying, or maybe even thinking about their next appointment or what else they have going on in their day? I mean, would you recommend a doctor who didn't listen to you, right? In my work, I have quantified 3 types of listening. The first type of listening is hearing but not listening. So this type of listening is when you're in the car, for example, and music is playing in the background, and so you're driving, you're not really paying attention to that music. Or maybe you're sitting in the passenger seat and you're reading and there's music playing and you're still not listening to that music. You don't need to listen, right? It's just background noise, hearing but not listening. The next type of listening is casual listening, where you tune in and out. So maybe you don't need to know what the person is saying or what you're listening to. You don't need that information. You already have enough information. Or the speaker is boring. Yeah, it happens. Or maybe they're taking up too much of your time. These kinds of things happen too. So you're tuning in and out. You don't need to focus in, so you don't. Casual listening, in and out. The last level of listening is intent listening. This is when you are really laser focused in on what somebody is saying. And this is hugely important, of course, in your business and personal life, but especially with clients as you try to uncover what a client might really want. I had a conversation the other day and it took a half hour before I got to what that client was actually looking for. And then even then I had to get back to her and say, I think this is what we should work on. So listening really hard in those types of situations, super important. Here's the other piece of this type of intent listening. You are exhibiting empathy. You're trying to put yourself in the other person's shoes. You're trying to feel what they might be feeling. Imagine what they might be feeling. And here's the other thing too. You might not have to have a solution immediately available. It might be enough that you listened. Maybe that's all they want. I've spent most of my professional life talking about speaking, right? The sending of messages versus listening, the receiving of messages. With everything that's been going on, it's really time to get back into listening not only because it confers such tremendous benefits, and to do it with empathy and to do it with sincerity. And here's something really key, to do it without making value judgments as you're listening. But the biggest reason to listen carefully and to try to engage in intent listening when it's important, when it's necessary, is how much I learn. So that's what I have for you on listening. Thanks for watching and listening.